Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely glad to be here, Amanda.
We're so lucky to have you because you have such an extensive background in recruiting, which is so helpful when it comes to developing resumes. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into recruiting and how long you've been doing this and kind of your experience there?
Absolutely. So when I'm an LSU graduate and my major was management with concentration in HR. So I've always been in human resources and recruiting for my entire career. For most of my career, I was on the corporate side of things. So in various roles in HR, leading talent acquisition organizations. So started as a recruiter, worked my way up and managed some recruiting teams anywhere from 15 to 50 people depending upon the organization and size and in varying industries. And about 4 years, I stepped away from the corporate side of things and transitioned into more of a recruiting consulting type role where I'm doing a couple of different things focused on helping clients to identify talent to bring into their organizations, as well as coaching candidates from the standpoint of their job search strategies, including resume writing and interview preparation.
Perfect. And that background in corporate and on the client side is so helpful, especially when it comes to things that people are concerned about, especially like ATS software and knowing exactly what it means for a resume to be ATS optimized. We hear that a lot. So we have some questions that I kind of wanted to just go over with you since you are using ATS software and you're very familiar with it, to kind of demonstrate what it is, but then also our approach to how we go about writing the resumes to make sure that they get through ATS systems, but also so that they are creating value and kind of demonstrating the value of each person.
Absolutely. That sounds great.
So the first question, I just kind of wanted to go over what exactly is ATS software and how do recruiters and hiring managers use it to find applicants?
Sure. So an applicant, ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. And so what those systems are used for, they're used by recruiters in companies. There's lots of different ATSs out there on the market. So depending upon the company size, there's different systems that suit different companies depending upon the needs.
Mhm.
And so recruiters use these systems from everything to managing the job descriptions in their system to posting it out on the web so that when job seekers go out there and find these positions posted, that's typically stemming from an applicant tracking system. And they manage the entire recruiting and typically onboarding process. So when a candidate applies, that application goes through the applicant tracking system, and that's really where everything is housed. Hiring managers review the information from there. Sometimes they're scheduling interviews, processing offers, and then transitioning to the onboarding structure. And it really varies how those applicant tracking systems are helping recruiters. Sometimes every resume or every applicant that comes through is reviewed by a recruiter. Other times they are leveraging keywords, and the applicant tracking system can often be ranking a candidate based upon their qualifications that are listed in their resume and how they may match for positions based upon that job description that's posted. So they're used in a couple of different ways, but in a nutshell, that's how they're typically used in an organization.
Okay, so kind of maintaining all the resumes that they're getting, but also then searching through the resumes to find the right candidates for either the job that was posted or
That's a
also
great
jobs
point.
that.
Yeah, it really serves as, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So I wanted to see if, you apply for a job, right? And your resume goes into the applicant tracking system and it can go in for that specific job. But in the future, if other jobs come up, are they kind of housed there so that recruiters can go back in and search through those resumes they've received as well?
Absolutely. It's typically like a database, truly. And so there are search features on there. And, when a recruiter has a new position, oftentimes that's where they start. They go into the system from prior applicants, they put in some keywords and a location radius, and then they go ahead and search and can reach out to candidates that way more proactively than, posting it out and then waiting for candidates to apply. So it's definitely used as a database, on an ongoing basis, if you will.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So another question we get all the time is how to optimize resumes for applicant tracking systems. So, my question is, do you suggest that an applicant create different versions of their resume for every single job they apply to or for?
Definitely not.
Okay.
That is not needed for sure. You know,
Mm,
if a candidate has, or if a job seeker has a well-written resume, it should capture their core competencies, their skills, and their achievements, and their roles and responsibilities for each position. And
mhm.
if they are applying for a job that they're qualified for, there should not be a need, to completely rewrite a resume every time. Now, if a job seeker is looking in very different fields, for instance, maybe they're looking for a career shift, but they're still open to doing what they've currently been doing. So let's take a finance professional that may be looking to shift into IT because they worked with some financial systems and enjoy that. Well, they may want to have a resume specific to financial jobs and then specific to IT jobs. But aside from that, which is typically, not the case, you definitely don't need a resume. You need one good, robust resume. You may want to make it just a couple of tweaks. If there's maybe something that you see in a qualification, that maybe a system that you worked in but didn't list on your resume, you can maybe make some slight tweaks, but you definitely do not need to do that, and shouldn't spend that much time, revising a resume for every single job that you apply to.
Yeah, I think our approach here is that if you are having to create a new resume for every single job you apply for, it becomes one, overwhelming and very time consuming, but two, you probably aren't actually capturing your core value or the things that you bring to the table that maybe someone else wouldn't bring to the table. So, in doing so and actually creating that story about why you're the right fit and you should be able to target the same types of positions without having to recreate or reinvent your resume every single time. So, in your example, you can have one finance resume and one IT resume, but you should be able to apply with the finance resume to different finance positions.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. And sometimes, and that's, I think, a key part is really identifying the jobs that you qualify for and
Mm,
are truly interested in. Because I've seen sometimes where a job seeker will apply for multiple jobs at the same company, but
mm.
maybe in different areas using different resumes and things like that. And you lose some of the value from, being genuine in your resume and really showcasing your skills, and it can become a red flag for an employer if they see, that type of behavior as well.
That's a really good point because they could think, okay, why do you have so many different versions of your resume and why are you applying for so many different jobs if you are trying to kind of demonstrate what you're really good at?
Absolutely. I think the best advice, for a job seeker is to really understand what your targeted job is.
Hmm.
What is it that you're passionate about and want to do? And ensure that your resume showcases your qualifications and achievements well as it aligns. And then be true to that and go for that. And I think they'll be much more successful, much more quickly, in their job search process.
Yeah, and you're kind of automatically aligning yourself with the types of roles that need your talent, right? And want to, use the things that you're really good at. So I completely agree. Um, and so that kind of leads me to my next question. We talked about, ATS and how that fits into the job search. But for us, that's not the only thing we should be focused on. So, would you say that ATS is the most important thing you should be focused on when creating a resume and going into a job search? Or are there other elements that you should be putting a lot of time into as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. In today's competitive landscape in the job market, as we know, the supply and demand, supply is high for, candidates, and, the jobs that are available are lower than what we've seen in the most recent years. So I always encourage job seekers, leverage your network. Certainly, look for job postings and things like that, but oftentimes it's really, engaging with your network, and, certainly online, social media, are all great advocates, to be able to connect with others. Maybe it's people that you worked with in the past, or perhaps it's even people that you don't even know, but can make that professional connection and do that outreach. In speaking of the job market, I think it really, recruiters are getting a lot of candidates for any, given position oftentimes. And so it's important that, job seekers are setting themselves apart. And that's one way they can do it, by reaching out, making an introduction and things along those lines. And sometimes jobs for companies are not even posted out on the web. So
Mhm.
leveraging that, as the strategy alone, you may be overlooking some great opportunities. So by doing that outreach, oftentimes job seekers can learn more about positions that they may not have learned about otherwise.
Mhm. Let me ask you about LinkedIn.
Sure.
Because at Elevated Resumes, we really focus a lot on LinkedIn. Your resume is obviously a huge piece to the puzzle, but we think LinkedIn is as well, because you can find those people that you need to be connecting with. And you might come across people that you have in your network that know people that can connect you with those jobs that maybe aren't posted on the web, or at least reach out to people that might know of positions that you aren't aware of. So as a recruiter, if someone applies for a position, but then also goes to LinkedIn to connect with you and reach out to you directly, does that help you? Does that make you kind of look at them a little bit more?
Definitely. I was working on a search recently and I had hundreds of applications come through, for that particular position. And were some candidates that really stood out. I think, they reached out, they expressed their interest and shared why they were interested. And I think it really, when you're getting that many candidates, and oftentimes it's candidates that aren't necessarily qualified for the job, but maybe just applying to many different jobs to try to get in and things like that. So it really helps to set them apart and showcases a genuine interest in the position. And I think that's always helpful. So I think that making that connection and that, going the step above is truly, helpful to both recruiters and hiring managers, and it helps job seekers to help set them apart as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you another question. So I always talk to clients about, if you're able to make that connection with someone, either through LinkedIn or you have a friend that can connect you with that person, and maybe your resume didn't meet every single qualification on the job description, but you're able to make that connection and kind of explain your value and at least get to know that person a little bit, they're probably more likely to go back and give your resume a second glance, or maybe pull it from that applicant tracking system just to look at it again, which might keep you in mind for other positions that come up, and they might just have your name in the back of their head when they are looking for candidates in the future.
Certainly. I think that's a great point. I mean, oftentimes, of course, the resume can't capture every single thing. And so certainly it may be that there's some type of connection that you can help to establish, to make to your point about, things they've done that would help to translate some transferable skills and things like that. But then, also to keep you in mind for other opportunities. That networking is so powerful, and making those connections, it's always valuable, to us in the professional arena.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay, let's get into designs, because at Elevated Resumes, we love our designs. We think it just helps the reader consume the information faster, kind of pick out the key points. It makes it a lot easier to go through resumes when they're visually appealing.
Sure.
So, my question, do resume designs typically get through applicant tracking systems?
They do. And my recommendation is to leverage a PDF version of the resume. Oftentimes, I see, when candidates apply through with Microsoft Word,
Mhm.
sometimes it's not even a designed resume. Sometimes it's just a basic formatted resume, but it completely loses its format, in some cases when it's in Word. When you're leveraging a PDF file, it typically locks in that formatting, so
Mhm.
that when it gets to the hiring manager or the recruiter, it looks exactly the same as when you submitted it as a job seeker. And I think, to your point, the designed resumes are really, helpful in setting those candidates apart, because you oftentimes are getting so many of those resumes. When you see one that's professionally done in that way, both designed and written, it can really help to, get that, for that job seeker to have a competitive advantage with other candidates.
Yeah, it's just another way to kind of set yourself apart. And we actually ran one of our designed resumes through your applicant tracking system as if we were a candidate. And
Yes.
we were so happy with the results. It came out exactly the way we designed it and formatted it. So that was really good to see. And it was because it was in a PDF. So it came
Right.
through exactly the way we wanted it to, but then also you were able to search using the content from the design resume. So not only did it look right, but you were able to use it and search through candidates, and that resume was pulled based on those keyword searches. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Came through just as beautiful as it was,
Yay.
in its original version, and came through just as it should. And then searching, we use for the sake of the example, some of the core competencies that were listed. Just to search for some things that maybe weren't, as common terms as others and things like that, and it generated in all the searches that we ran. So
Perfect. That's what we wanted to see.
yeah.
Love it. And then another question I have, because with technology, things are constantly changing and evolving. So are is ATS software also changing constantly? And how do you keep up with all of those changes as a job seeker?
It really is. Yeah. And it's constantly changing and there's so many on the market. I mentioned that I had worked on the corporate side for a while and then transitioned into consulting. And on in both roles, if you will, I was able to do some system implementations and work in various applicant tracking systems, and everyone's different. So not only is it they're constantly evolving, but everyone that you work in is complete, is different. There's a lot of commonalities, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of different features and the way they're configured and things like that. So my advice is to have a good, well-written resume that showcases your skills and achievements well. And I think that at the end of the day is going to help you to transition into next steps of the job search process. It's not about changing it for every single job. If the foundation is just about having a well-written, solid resume, and that should, have all those keywords embedded to be able to get you through the applicant tracking systems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're focused on every single change that's made across, along the way, it's just going to get too difficult to try to keep up with. And really, the main purpose, whether there's little changes or not, is to find qualified candidates, right? It's really to help recruiters and hiring managers find those candidates that fit the job description. And as long as you're fitting that job description and you're communicating your value, the changes shouldn't really make that big of a difference for you as a job seeker. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And you're going to spend so much time and energy trying to figure out, every ATS.
Try to beat
And
the system.
yeah. So, the most important thing is just having that strong, solid resume that really showcases your brand and value, and you'll have success in your job search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we see a lot of times is when clients come to us and they get their resume redone, and we kind of talk about their messaging and how they need to position themselves in the job market. It just, when they have that designed resume and that LinkedIn done, it kind of creates that little bit of confidence. And they end up going out and telling everyone that they're looking for a job, and they're reaching out to people and they're showing their resume to people. And that's what usually gets the ball rolling, when you have that resume that you're excited to send out to people. So it goes to show that yes, the content and the design, it has to look great and it has to, demonstrate your value and your experience. But there's also that aspect where you have to kind of be able to put yourself out there as well. And when you're able to do both of those things and have a great resume, great LinkedIn, and also be out there and talking about what you're looking for and reaching out to people, that's really where the magic happens and doors start to open up. That's what we found.
Definitely. Yeah, same here, and I think that's the most important thing is is really, being out on the forefront, on LinkedIn. It's so powerful, leveraging that, both from the standpoint of doing out, outreaching to others, building your brand, with regular activity and getting out there. And then having that robust, we didn't talk a whole lot about it, but having that robust LinkedIn profile that's optimized as well, so that when recruiters or, hiring managers are searching for the type of talent that you can provide, your LinkedIn profile is showing up in their search results and things like that. And I think that, that resume, there's nothing more rewarding whenever you share the resume with the client and they say, oh, you make me look so good,
Yeah. I can't wait to send this to
I could
people.
have never, yeah, I could have never done this, just because it's hard for people to talk about themselves,
Yeah,
and to
so
put
hard.
that to paper. And so when they get that and they feel, they're really excited about it and feel good about it, they can put their best foot forward. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know we didn't get to talk a lot about LinkedIn, but it is so similar
It
to
really is.
applicant tracking systems in the way that recruiters and hiring managers use it to find qualified candidates and what recruiters do, which is sourcing candidates.
Mhm.
And it's very similar, right? So, can you talk just for a minute about how recruiters are using LinkedIn and kind of how it's similar to those applicant tracking systems when you're searching for candidates?
Definitely. So recruiters use LinkedIn in several different ways. One way it's nurturing their relationships with their connections and having those connections, I guess, first level connections when they do have a position that they need to recruit for and can do that outreach. But in some cases, it gets more, complex. So they're posting jobs out on LinkedIn and just as any other job board and having candidates apply in. And then, when they're actually doing more active sourcing, they are searching, leveraging LinkedIn just like a database to
Mhm.
find the type of talent that they need. And so, and there's a couple of ways that they're doing that. They're putting in search criteria. Sometimes recruiters can easily see that a job seeker may be looking. They've got that open to work circle around their profile. In other cases, it may be more behind the scenes where if if a recruiter has a LinkedIn corporate account, they can see that, maybe a job seeker has a flag turned on behind the scenes, if you will,
Yeah.
that will notify them. And then other times they're truly reaching out to people that are, more passive, and they may not be aware if they are or may not be looking for a job. But if it's a great opportunity to put in front of them, they'll reach out to see if they may want to consider it.
Mhm.
But the trick with LinkedIn and the profile optimization from, what I found is it's not only just putting keywords in there and optimizing that. LinkedIn will prioritize search results based upon the placement of those keywords as well. So ensuring that you have the right keywords in the right places for what you want to be found for is very important. And what I've found with some of the clients that I've worked with is once we get their LinkedIn profile optimized and get those keywords in the right place, oftentimes they may have had them in their profile, but just in a different section. They're coming back to me saying, hey, I'm getting all these calls from recruiters now, So it's really, important to prioritize that so that when that recruiter is searching, you are the first person or, in that top 10 list that's populating in their searches.
Yeah, I always say it's kind of like Google search results, right? If you're on page 1 or 2, you're probably going to be seen, but if you're on page 8 or 9, they're
Right.
probably not going to get there. So you want to make sure that you can kind of rank higher in search results based on those keyword placements and how active you are on the platform.
Exactly.
And people always wonder, well, why would I use LinkedIn if I'm not in an active job search? But I think what they don't realize is that that passive job search can almost be even more powerful because you're not out there applying and going through the motions. Someone's reaching out directly to you, asking for your information. So it takes that whole job search process out of it, and you're just staying active and keeping your experience up to date and adding keywords when it's relevant. And you may have recruiters that find you and reach out to you directly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they say the best place or the best time to look for a job is when you already have one. And
Exactly. Yep.
oftentimes, yeah, it's
Yep.
those ones that fall in your lap. You weren't expecting it or actively looking, but it's an opportunity to, maybe make the next step in your career, and things like that. And so you definitely don't want to miss out on those.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, this has been so helpful. I think a lot of people will take a lot of tips from this and maybe hopefully ease their mind a little bit about applicant tracking systems, that they're important, but they're really not the only thing you need to be worried about when you're in a job search. And there are other avenues where you can connect with people and demonstrate your value as well.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat. And it's been really great to talk about these things with you. I'm sure we will do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks.